When I flopped down into the boat, there was 2 or 3 more swam. I didn't see any. When I ran into the sea, I didn't see anybody. All I was focusing on was getting into the sea, and I didn't look round. Anyway, when I flopped down in the boat into this motor launch, there was 2 or 3 more on either side were being helped up, and eventually the motor launch was full. It carried on because it had these dinghies behind, and the object of that was to reach the troops who couldn't swim, but who were stood up to their chests and some up to their necks in water, and their arms, keep putting their arms up to be seen. And eventually, after about a couple of hours, must have taken about 2 hours, we were all loaded up. We turned round and headed back out to sea, and eventually we reached, it was a minesweeper, and they'd put scramble nets down. Now, the non-swimmers had been stood in the sea with their boots on. I'd kicked my boots off, left my boots behind, and I could get up the scramble nets quickly, but some of them, there were screams and shouts. They were exhausted. They were trying to get up the scramble nets and couldn't, and the sailors were doing everything they could to help them. It was all a sorry sight, and you heard them fall back into the sea, great splashes where they fell off the scramble nets. And anyway, I got up pretty well, and I got on. I climbed over the whatever it is, and onto the deck, and a sailor grabbed me by the arm and shoved me through a doorway and down some stairs. Not a word, he just grabbed hold of me, shoved me through this doorway and down some stairs. There was into a corridor, a small corridor thing, where another sailor was in there. He shoved us down some more stairs, and eventually we were down in the hold, down as far as we could go. And there was a sailor down there, and he grabbed hold of me. The first word he said, "Get up against the bulkhead." That's a wall, the bulkhead. And he shoved me up against the wall, and 2 or 3 more of us. And then I could hear people coming down the stairs, and I just laid there, and some of them was laying on top of one another, and there was 2 or 3 on top of me. But I'd been there first. I had one arm free, and my head free, one arm free, and the other arm was trapped under. All I could think of was to get pins and needles. Anyway, there we laid like that, and all the time this was going on. All the time it was daylight. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, I should think, about that. And the Bofors and Oerlikons guns on board the minesweeper were banging away at the aircraft, and we heard explosions somewhere, whoomp, and then we heard we heard the engines throbbing, and then I can't remember anymore. We fell fast asleep, and I woke up, and I heard voices shouting and bells ringing, and I heard the words Sheerness. Anyway, apparently they had two routes across the channel. There was the northern route, which went north and then turned west, and then there was the direct route across to Dover and Folkestone and places farther along the Sussex, the Kent coast. And this route took us up north and round the North Foreland and into the channel, into the Channel Estuary, the Medway area, and Sheerness. Then the engines had stopped, and we were all there waiting, wondering what was going on. And nobody told us anything. We just laid there, and some went back to sleep. I couldn't sleep, but some did. And we were just out chatting among ourselves, talking among ourselves. And then all those, as well as us down in the hold, the whole deck was filled with troops. And they were the first to get off. They were going they were going off, and we couldn't get up from where we were until they'd gone. There was no room on deck. Oh, and then eventually we started stirring, and they called us up these stairs, and we went up and on deck, and then we saw that the troops were going into a big shed. There was a big shed there, and they were filing into the doorway of this shed. Some were in a bit of a mess, and there was stretchers, men on stretchers, and men being carried by their mates. There was one thing and another. We looked a real sight. And no, we'd all been in the water. All the ones on our minesweeper had all been in the water. And when Dunkirk was working, when the port of Dunkirk was in, the men were able to go onto the ships in a proper manner along the mall, and by the time we got there, all that was finished, and we had to resort to the beaches. Well, eventually I filed into this big shed, and there seemed to be women everywhere. There was WVS, there was Salvation Army girls with their bonnets and their red chubby cheeks, and there was tables with tea. They were giving us mugs of tea, and it went down like nectar. Great mugs of tea. We took it all down in one go. And there was, and they gave us biscuits, packets of biscuits, and told us not to eat them all at once, but to eat them slowly. If we ate them all at once, it'd make us sick. So we tried to follow that advice. We stood about in groups like that. And then they said, a woman came to me, and she could see I was bare feet. And she said, "What size shoes do you take?" And I said, 9s. So off she went, and she came back with a pair of I can only say they were winkle pickers, pointed toes. She said, "This is the only pair of 9s I can find." And I didn't have any socks, so she couldn't do anything about that. They hadn't got any. Anyway, I put these shoes on, and so I had a pair of shoes, trousers, shirt, and she said, "I think I can find you a coat of some kind." And of course, the clothes had all dried on us. The hair was all matted. And, anyway, she came back with a Mac, just a plain man's Mac, a bit short in the sleeves. Anyway, it was something. So I put that on, and she gave me a comb and a pocket handkerchief. Then she took me over to a table, and she said, "Now this girl will see to you." The girls were seated, and what they were doing, they had postcards. On one side, it was written on, "Safe and sound in England. We'll be in touch," or some words to that effect. And then you signed your name, and then you told her your address you wanted it sent to, And she wrote that on the address side, and it was already had a stamp on it, and they posted. That was posted. So that was the first that was done, and then beyond this, and we realised how it took such a long time for to clear the shed while we was waiting on the boat to clear the first, because you were reluctant to leave. You had tea, you had biscuits, you had the women talking to you, and everybody was reluctant to leave the shed. Anyway, eventually we had to, and we went on to a railway side.